Human beings tend to be very childlike by nature. We like simple endings. We like direct, uncomplicated conclusions that lack grey areas or any kind of confusing miasmas which call into doubt this need that we all have to believe that we're on the side of righteousness, that we are on the side of justice, that we are on the side of the good. Yet people will go to enormous lengths to avoid this grey area when it relates to subjects and topics and issues, political or religious issues, that have an extreme nature about them, where everything is deeply polarized. In the same way a person will go to extreme lengths not to confront their shadow, they will also not go to extreme lengths. They will also go to extreme lengths to not confront the shadow of the group or organization or belief or religion or political system they champion. They have to believe under all circumstances that they are the paragons of virtue and that they are supporting and abiding by and connected to other paragons of virtue. There simply cannot be any grey area. They want a life like a cowboy movie where there's a goodie and there's a baddie, and they always have to be on the side of the goodie. Which brings me to the Middle East, and in particular the Palestinian issue. So many people across the board, even people who would not be politically involved in anything, tend to be sympathetic towards the Palestinian plight, with the exception of American born-again Christian Zionists and of course regular Jewish Zionists. Now, having said that, I know many Jews who are not particularly obsessed with Israel or Israeli policy, and are certainly not enamoured by the likes of Benjamin Netanyahu and his government in terms of policy towards the Palestinian issue. Although at the same time I accept that the vast majority of Jews in the world are generally pro-Israel and don't have an issue with Israel's need or requirement to protect its own borders. Now, I often get a lot of flack by not nailing my flag, my personal flag, or my name or my profile to the Palestinian issue. It's the same reason I didn't nail my flag to the Catholic or Protestant issue in Ireland, in Northern Ireland, when the Troubles were going. It's really down to one simple thing. I will not support anything where religion is the motivating factor, and in particular the Abrahamic religions. My attitude is that the Middle East is a dead issue, it's a hopeless basket case, and it cannot be dealt with while it is still under the yoke of the Abrahamic religions. As long as the Bible, the Talmud, and the Quran hold sway in that microscopic region where Asia, Africa, and Europe meets, there's absolutely no reason for any of us who have intelligence to go anywhere near that issue. It is not our fight, these are not our religions, and these are not our people. Unless, of course, you actually are a member of those religions, then you have a different approach to it. But if you're anyway involved in the idea of reason or the idea of maintaining neutrality, you have to stand back and look at the factors involved. The State of Israel came about as a result of centuries of horrific anti-Semitism and hatred of Jews in Europe. Its creation was fully understandable. Yes, I know about the Balfour Agreement. I don't need some truther who's watched some video online to educate me because they think they're now a font of all knowledge. I know about the Balfour. I know about the involvement of the Rothschild family. It was a necessary thing. It had to happen. The World War II alone proved what happened in the Holocaust, why it needed to take place. There was no country called Palestine. This is a myth. Yes, you can stick your coins up on the screen saying, look, it's a sign saying Palestine. Palestine was a region of the Ottoman Empire, a Turkish Muslim colonial empire. That's all it was. When the Ottoman Empire was destroyed at the end of World War I, it then became a British mandate, a British protectorate, similar to something like Gibraltar, that kind of thing, or the Falkland Islands. When the State of Israel was founded, who were the Israelis fighting? They were not fighting. You see, this is the thing that amazes me. You're so ignorant, especially these Irish ones. The Israelis were fighting against the British. The British and the Israelis were at war. People don't seem to understand this or even know this. This is how the State of Israel came about. The Israelis fought the British. Just like in the USA, the Americans fought the British. And countless other places around the world where British colonialism was a fact of life. The Muslim situation in the Middle East tends to be a bit different in that they tended to be under French colonial control. And the French colonial rule fell apart in the middle of just before the Second World War and was completely finished by the 1960s with the fall of Algeria. The Middle East cannot be dealt with for two factors, religion and oil, but specifically religion. I cannot take a side, or any side, in a world that's based on the Abrahamic dogmas. Now that's not to say I don't feel great sympathy for Jews, Muslims or Christians or Druze who are killed in these conflicts, especially if they're children, but I don't care about ones that go onto the front line. If you join the IDF or you're in the military or you're in Hamas and you're killed, you're a combatant, then that's the end of it. Secondly, the clear and pressing danger, and don't give me this thing about the Greater Israel. This is the Greater Israel thing was a thing that was mentioned decades ago. There's no formal documents in the Knesset or anywhere in world Jewry supporting it. Israel didn't even want the West Bank at the end of the 67 war, which they rightly won and were right to fight and were about to be exterminated by the Arab coalitions. This is how the Palestinians ended up in Gaza. Again, those of you who are often passionate about this stuff, you have no education in it. You simply emotionally react to videos you're shown or pictures you're shown on television or on video or on the internet and social media. It's deeper and stronger and bigger than that. And this is why you shouldn't support activists on any side, especially if you don't live in that part of the world. If you're from Australia, you activate, your activism is for Australian Aborigines. If you're in other parts of the world, in Ireland, it's the victims of clerical abuse. If you're in wherever country, in England, victims of Muslim rape gangs. This is another aspect to this telescopic philanthropy or this, extended altruism. They want you obsessed with the Middle East because you don't notice the problems in your own country. A lot of this has to do with the oil as well. The oil industry is very much based on our attention and our focus that we give upon the Middle East. Now don't give me this thing that's one side or the other. They're all bad and they're all good, but they're based on religion, and we cannot support that. As a European pagan, I cannot in good conscience throw my support around any group that stands behind the Quran, the Talmud or the Bible. It's just as simple as that. I cannot do it. And I won't do it. So my attitude is, what happens in the Middle East is irrelevant to me. Yes, I know many of you, particularly in America, are upset about it because large amounts of money are diverted from your country into places like Israel, but vast amounts are also sent to Egypt as well. You need to check these things up. Both sides are parasiting off the American taxpayer. Now, these people who go and actively involve themselves in the West Bank and Gaza, they don't care about the people suffering in their own country. They will gladly walk over a person lying on the streets in London, Melbourne, Dublin, Boston, Paris, Auckland, Johannesburg, you name it. They'll gladly step over at their own kin starving in the streets in order to wave a Palestinian flag. This is seriously something wrong here. And likewise, that's just as bad as these American Christian Zionists who do the same and want to usher in the return of Jesus. My attitude is, I don't care about the Middle East, other than it reinforces my terror and my revulsion of Abrahamic religions, and that's how you should see it too. So don't give me this crap that I'm somehow